Deshdile and welcome to Tibet This Week. This is Sakina Bhatt with another edition of weekly news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines first. His Holiness the Dalai Lama visits Central Tibetan Administration premises after renovation. His Holiness the Dalai Lama grants audience to student groups pursuing Tibetan Buddhism. Central Tibetan Administration hosts mass prayer for the self-immolators. Representative Ngodup Tsering urges Tibet support in Canadian Parliament. Canada-based Chinese organizations issued joint statements supporting the Dalai Lama's authority over reincarnation. Tibetan parliamentary delegation advocates in Europe. Tibetans minoritized by China face imposition of Mandarin. Panel discussion on China's digital surveillance and human rights violation. Nagpur's Tibet supporter Sandesh Meshram embarks on 7,500-kilometer cycle rally to raise awareness on Tibet. His Holiness the Dalai Lama blessed and consecrated the renovated headquarters of Central Tibetan Administration in Dharamshala on Friday last week. Commending the leadership of Central Tibetan Administration, His Holiness expressed his admiration for the infrastructural developments. His Holiness visited the seat of Central Tibetan Administration to preside over the valedictory session of the 14th Tibetan Religious Conference, during which His Holiness reiterated on the importance of reviving Nalanda tradition. His Holiness said, Buddhism, which came to Tibet from the Nalanda tradition, should not be regarded simply as a religion. It has the potential to serve the academic field as logic and psychology. With reference to the latest news of self-immolation in Tibet, His Holiness recited prayers from the Words of Truth and urged everyone to pray for the brothers and sisters who sacrificed their lives for the cause of Tibet. Two groups of students pursuing Tibetan Buddhism had an audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Dharamshala on Monday this week. His Holiness outlined his 4 commitments and stated that the whole of humanity comprises of one community.
So I'm trying to promote a more compassionate mind, compassionate humanity, not necessarily something holy, but a selfish reason. Everybody, including animal, take care themselves. So we human beings, in order to develop individual, happy human being, very much related with our emotion.
A large number of people gathered at Tsuklakhang to offer prayers and condolences to Yonten, a Tibetan youth in his 20s who self-immolated for the cause of Tibet last week. The prayer service was held by the Central Tibetan Administration in Dharamshala on Monday this week. Speaking at the prayer service, Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Singye said, as China continues to tighten its control over Tibet, more and more Tibetans are settling themselves ablaze, resulting in 154 self-immolations so far. Their sacrifice has not gone in vain as it has garnered attention and support from the international community, enabling Tibet's issue for discussion at the forefront. In his speech, Dr. Singye also asked the gathering to remember Dr. Hishi Dhunden, the former personal physician of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who passed away recently at the age of 93. Led by the Office of Tibet, members of Tibetan community and NGOs in Taiwan also observed a prayer service to mourn the demise of Yonten. Representative of the Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C., Ngodup Tsering called upon the leaders of Ontario, Canada to support human rights in Tibet on Thursday last week. Representative attended a meeting that was chaired by Majority House Leader Paul Calandra and was attended by members of the provincial parliament, including Putila Karpuche, the first Tibetan elected in public office in North America and chair of Ontario Parliamentary Friends of Tibet. Canada-based Chinese organizations issued a joint statement supporting the Dalai Lama's authority over the reincarnation and criticizes Chinese interference. At an outreach event titled Canada-Sino-Tibet Dialogue organized by the Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C. on Friday last week, Representative Ngodup Tsering met with over 60 Chinese scholars, activists and youth at the Canada Tibetan Culture Center in Toronto. Representative Ngodup Tsering spoke about the unbearable situation that Tibetans in Tibet are facing under the current regime of the Chinese Communist Party and further shared the sad news of the recent self-immolation in Tibet. He also touched upon Hong Kong's movement and the courage of youth. He further spoke on the middle way policy and the lack of positive response from the Chinese government. Tibetan parliamentary delegation met members of parliament, officials and members of Tibetan communities in the Netherlands from the 21st to 24th November. The Tibetan parliamentary delegation advocated Tibet's issue in France, Belgium and the Netherlands. The parliamentarians met with the members of the House of Representatives Committee on Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. The delegation also requested Amnesty International to do research on Tibet-related matters. One of the greatest challenges faced by minority groups in preserving their culture is the imposition of monolingualism, stated Tinle Chuki, Office of Tibet, Geneva, at the UN Forum on Minority Issues. Ms. Tinle Chuki stated that Tibetans have been minoritized by China in their own land and Mandarin language is being imposed on Tibetans. She further called upon the Chinese government to adopt effective policies for the preservation of Tibetan language and called for the immediate release of Tashi Wangchuk, Sonam Palden and all other Tibetan language advocates languishing in the Chinese prisons and centers. The 12th session of the UN Forum on Minority Issues was held on 28 to 29 November 2019 at UN Building in Geneva. The theme of the forum was Education, Language and the Human Rights of Minorities. China poses new challenges to international order through expansion of trade relations by heightening its surveillance, said Kelsang Gyaltsen, former envoy of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Swiss-Tibetan Friendship Association and Society for Threatened Peoples in Bern, Switzerland jointly organized a panel session titled Surveillance and Oppression, the Threats of Tibetans and Uyghurs in China and Exile on Thursday last week. The session highlighted China and its long-arm surveillance is not only restricted in the regions under its control but is also active in the community in exile and foreign countries. Nagpur's Sri Sandesh Meshram embarks on 7,500-kilometer cycle rally from Himachal to Hubli to raise awareness on Tibet. A long-time Tibet supporter from Nagpur, Sandesh, on his fourth cycle rally campaign to spread the message of Free Tibet, Save India, will be covering 12 Indian states in 3.5 months. The purpose of the Cycle Yatra is to create grassroots awareness and mobilize support of the general Indian people on the issue of Tibet and the urgent situation inside Tibet, Sri Meshram said. Sri Sandesh Meshram had earlier organized 3 such cycle yatras in 2014, 2016 and 2017. Mr. Sandesh Meshram is regional convener, Western Region Core Group for Tibetan Cause India and a member of India-Tibet Friendship Society. So much for today. See you next time and have a great weekend.